In late August of 2023, Kickstarter announced its new policy that all crowdfunding managers disclose how they use AI for their projects. Almost immediately after that, Stronghold Games, the producers of Terraforming Mars, launched their immensely successful campaign for more Terraforming Mars, and as a result of this policy, had to disclose how they use AI for the generation of the game's artwork. Well, this became a target of severe controversy, because if artists start losing their jobs to AI, then what next? Where do we draw the line? At what point will AI begin completely designing games for us? That is the topic of this video. We'll look into what AI really is, its limitations, and what it holds in the future of board gaming. What is artificial intelligence? Now, I recognize as a channel that does board game reviews, this isn't your #1 go-to for discussions on this topic, but as a former math teacher and software developer, this is a topic that fascinates me. But you know what I specialize in? I specialize in summarizing complex board games in 60 seconds or less. So why not do a 60-second or less summary of artificial intelligence? You've seen Plinko before, right? Imagine a crazy idea. What if I could take a message like, "What's a good YouTube channel for board game reviews?" and encode the message using a simple ping pong ball code so that after the balls had jumbled around, they came out the bottom with a new coded message that gave me the answer, Board Game Dad. It's not going to happen on the first try, so what if I could repeat this drop millions of times, each time making small changes to the shapes of the pegs, the spacing, and keep adding more layers until it worked consistently? This contraption bears a few similarities to a neural network, the engine behind most AI technology. The pegs are like nodes, the rows are like layers, with an input layer, an output layer, and the hidden layers. This process of adjusting the nodes as we repeat the experiment over and over again is called training. This is obviously a flawed metaphor. Significantly, a neural network doesn't operate by adjusting probabilities. Rather, it adjusts the weights used in mathematical operations between the layers. The most important takeaway from that video is that artificial intelligence, or machine learning, works because of training data. In the example, I had to give it a question and an answer pair. So the innovation in machine learning is not a machine's ability to be creative, but rather a machine's ability to automatically adjust the little pegs in the Plinko machine so that after giving it millions and millions of sample data with question and answer pairs, it can eventually give me a predictable or believable response on a piece of new information. I can give it a question I've never given it before, and it can give me a new answer, but it's an answer that's based on patterns that I gave it. And that is why there is so much accusation about plagiarism. The whole reason an AI like Midjourney or DALL-E can generate an image based on a text input is that it's been given millions of pairs of images and captions that go together. But that artwork doesn't come from the computer programmers, it comes from scraping the internet and taking these image caption pairs from non-consenting artists or photographers. And of course, they aren't being compensated. Setting the ethics of that aside, I just want to be clear that machine learning draws from examples. It is the heart of what makes the technology possible and also its biggest limitation. The first limitation of artificial intelligence is that it can only do things based on examples that I give it. The second limitation is that artificial intelligence can only do one thing very, very well. And that thing is whatever it was trained to do. So to give you a specific example, let's take a look at ChatGPT. I'm very curious, by the way, to hear about your personal experience with this. Have you tried using the free ChatGPT tool? And if you haven't checked it out yet, there are lots of resources in this video's description. Or if you have you upgraded to 4.0? Please let me know in the comments what your experience has been, and as well as your concerns with artificial intelligence. But for now, one of the reasons why I'm making this video is because I've heard so much hype about how powerful ChatGPT is and all of the things that it can do, but the truth is ChatGPT only does one thing very well. It's a natural language processing tool. It can take a human written text and it can translate that into meaning for a computer, and it can do things with that. Now, people will say it does so much more. It can write poems, it can write a story, it can even write a board game rule book. And yes, it can do that. I'm just not saying that it does it well. If you play around with it long enough, you'll find that the jokes get old, the poems are predictable, and the stories are ordinary. They can be a whole lot better if you put more input into it, but at some point you've got to ask, is the idea from the story or the joke coming from ChatGPT, or is it coming from your own creative input? Now, my goal is not to disparage ChatGPT. I still think it's an awesome tool. In fact, I used it throughout making this video. And if you're curious to find out how, again, check out the description. I will put a article on my Patreon page talking about everything that I've learned and studied and everything I did for this video. But it's a little beside the 2 points that I want to make. Lesser point. You cannot use a tool like ChatGPT in its current state to do something like design a board game by writing a board game rulebook. You can try, and it will make something for you, but to see how horribly it fails at this, you can check out what I tried. And the second major point is that if ChatGPT can't do this, then what would it take to design an AI that can, and make all board game designers obsolete? The first major obstacle to creating AI that can design board games is creating an AI that can play a board game. I think this should go without saying, but you cannot design a board game if you don't know what it's like to play one. Now, of course, there is precedent for this already. There are AI that can play chess and Go. There's even AI that can play a lot of board games that you may play on your phone, like Through the Ages. But this isn't what we're looking for, because these computers have specific games that they were designed to play. Rather, we need an artificial intelligence that can understand gaming as a whole and play any game that you would give it. There is a name for this. It's called general game playing, and there are actually competitions where computers will compete against each other at board games that they were never exposed to until right before the competition begins. To find out more about this, you can check out the Association for the Advancement of Artificial Intelligence. However, I will say that while that sounds very exciting, it's not as exciting as you would expect. I'm thinking that you're going to take a photograph of Carcassonne rulebook or something, and the computers are going to start playing Carcassonne, but that's not quite where it's at right now. In order to deliver the rules to the computer, they have to be described in a game description language, which is essentially a programming language. So they already have the advantage of having the game being put into terms that they can understand. What would it take for a machine to be able to read a rulebook and understand the relationship between what's written on the page and how that gets played out? And not only that, but the computers that we have that play things like chess and checkers and Go, the game state is represented by the physical proximity of pieces on a board. What would it take to be able to analyze board games that have cards, that have text on them, and to be able to understand the strength of a certain card or its action and the resources it takes and the economy of designing your own engine and all of this extra stuff? Computer science isn't there yet, but it is considered a major milestone in the development of true artificial intelligence, a milestone that we haven't hit yet. The second obstacle is how computationally expensive it would be for an AI to generate an entire board game from scratch. Now, To understand this a little bit, let's look back at history. If you go back to the late 90s, the computer Deep Blue was able to play chess and beat the best chess players in the world. This technology did not depend on neural networks. Rather, it depended on processing power. It played chess by analyzing all of the different moves and choosing the one that was proven to be most successful. Fast forward about 20 years, now we have programs like AlphaGo, which are able to beat the best Go players, but not depending on processing all of the different moves that are available. Rather, that technology depends on a neural network. So in order to get from chess to Go, we needed an entirely new innovation. I am claiming, with my limited knowledge of course, but from what we've looked at even in this video, that it would be too computationally heavy, even with a neural network, for a computer to fully design a board game from scratch. I mean, just think about what we've looked at. We don't even yet have a computer that can play a general board game. So an AI would have to iterate through game design, much like the Plinko machine, moving the little pegs around, but every time it's moving pegs around, it's actually redesigning a whole new game and playing it again and again. It's too computationally expensive to do that right now. Is it possible? Is it theoretically possible for a neural network to be trained to do these things? Yes, I believe it is, but is it practical? No. I think in order to design board games, it still requires the creativity, the vision that a human can bring to the table. Which brings me to the next major question for this discussion. If the art of designing board games is truly a human effort, then should we decry any intrusion of AI as a contamination of our beloved craft? Or in other words, is this ethical? My answer to this is that even though it can conveniently mimic intelligence, artificial intelligence is still a lifeless tool. And as a tool, humans throughout history have never hesitated to adopt the usage of a tool. Our adoption of AI is inevitable, and we can look at history to see how it's happened before. The printing press made scribes obsolete. The photograph ruined things for portrait artists. The automobile disrupted jobs for anybody who was involved in taking care of horses. Telegraphs nearly eliminated messengers. Television cost the jobs of so many radio actors. Computers and internet disrupted everything. E-commerce destroyed brick and mortar stores, but we've never let this stop us. We've always adopted these tools, and they've always opened up new opportunities. They've always created new jobs, and despite the cost, we've always figured out a way forward. There is also always a stage of discomfort, a stage during which the people whose jobs are becoming obsolete are clinging to the last bit of business they can get in before they have to make an inevitable career change. If that idea is something that you would like to see embodied in a board game, then I have a recommendation for you. It's a long-time favorite for me. The game innovation. That area of discomfort, that question of, do I keep using the technology I have, or do I invest into the new thing, is best embodied in this game. Now, taking it back to the discussion of how we use artificial intelligence in board game design, I think it's important to recognize that Stronghold Games, the producers of Terraforming Mars, are using artists who are using artificial intelligence to produce the artwork. The jobs are there. They're just new jobs. They're new jobs, and they're adapted to a new tool. The beauty in board game design is when a carefully designed game intersects with a passionately researched theme. Machines don't come up with ideas, they emulate the ideas they've seen before. And this goes back to the point that I made at the very beginning. Artificial intelligence is the innovation of using machine learning to perform tasks. But in order to be truly intelligent, it has to have its own goals, its own drive, its own interest, its own passions. In order for a board game to be good, it has to be the product of somebody's interest, of somebody's passion. But can we make a machine that can understand interest and passion? Well, if we can, we haven't done it yet. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it enjoyable and informative. Please tell me about your experience with artificial intelligence, with ChatGPT, whatever it may be. And if you are especially knowledgeable in this topic, if I've made any mistakes, especially in my metaphor that I used there, please let me know. Let us all know in the comments down below. And finally, I'd like to remind you that this video is supported by my patrons, and I have a special debt of gratitude to you for both the financial support and the emotional support through our Discord channel and our discussions. I very much appreciate the community that is being created there. For information on how you can get connected, you know where to find it. Thank you again for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.